Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review The Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Season 1, Episodes 1 through 5. So, I went through all 5 of these episodes to try to get through all the origins of all these characters, so bear with me through these 5 episodes, and if you are to really enjoy this show, then I hope to go on and cover more of this for how much I was to have gone on while watching a number of seasons of this, go on and really very much enjoy it, and be very interesting of the expanse of what Marvel goes on and does within these bit of episodes, as well as also uh, if people are interested in other Avengers content, other Marvel animated stuff, I'd be happy to go on and cover any number of those. In the future, I had gone on to throw in a poll of stuff like superhero squads, and also throw in stuff like just kind of questioning, like, hey, do you guys want Avengers, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, animated series, X-Men live action stuff, because I feel that right now is a point where I'm kind of needing to think to cover all that stuff, but also I'm going to mix it around a little bit to not have it just be overwhelmingly all just superhero stuff, because a lot of people go on and probably find it to be a little too top heavy of all that and just kind of want a bit of genre change, and also I probably would need one too. But anyways, it's about that time to cover these 5 episodes. So this may go on through a lot of people to claim that these episodes feel like a probably rinse and repeat of MCU stuff now that they are to probably go on and maybe check all these episodes out. Yeah, like there is stuff that feels very familiar in these episodes, but also there is stuff that makes these episodes feel unique, like Iron Man facing off against Hydra, Thor going on and facing off against the Wrecking Crew, Jane Foster being a paramedic, which eventually is to make us realize what happened with Adam or Madam Web is probably because of this. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are to be rinse and repeating from MCU or stuff that they take from other projects and kind of put into the MCU. But so, we'd come to find also that characters aren't always treated equally in this show. We'd have Hulk needing to go on and kind of balance his story with Hawkeye and Black Widow. We'd have Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of sharing an episode with T'Challa, because at some point all these characters are not created very equally. They aren't getting their whole episode to kind of focus on these certain characters at a certain point, because also it's like, hey man, if we would have gone on and carried on longer with all these origins, eventually people would have just disinterest, which I get that. Eventually, once we get past to episode 5, we're finally going on and getting to the outbreak in the prison thing of Easter eggs. We're like, ooh, wow, like this is I guess a way more better investment of my time than going through all of this origin stuff. So I hope eventually I'll get there, because I'd gone on to see a number of seasons of this show. Believe me, there are big events going on from the Marvel comic books, as well as also there are some interesting characters being presented within the show that make this bit of Avengers cartoon or animated series a lot more interesting. I would also go on and say, if you are interested in Avengers animated stuff, definitely let me know by voting in the polls, or also to let me know by just commenting down below what is be your favorite Avengers, X-Men, Spider-Man, whatever animated thing, or whatever is to be live action that I probably still haven't covered yet, because at some point I will go on and hopefully cover it. I'm trying to realize that, yeah, right now is going to be the perfect time to go on and do more superhero genre stuff, but also I'm going to start to get some rotation. Also, there are some there's a load of new releases that are all still coming out, or are to go on and be things that I probably should cover that I haven't yet, that I feel obligated to cover, and I kind of feel very overwhelmed by all the titles and all that I'm still very like. I have it in the back of my mind that I'm covering certain things, but also there's too much to cover at this point. There's way too much to just dance around and try to get to it all. Um, to where at this point now I'm just feeling like, yeah, there's no way for me to go on and have a good enough channel anymore. Just because I like the way I do things is just so slow, and also it's just there's too much to cover at this point, as well as also I'm not doing it fast enough. So we get into these 5 episodes. Let's talk about it. So Iron Man in episode 1 of Iron Man is Born, we have Tony Stark that is to be told by Rhodey consistently throughout the episode, hey man, why don't you have S.H.I.E.L.D. help you out? Hey man, how about you go on and find people to work with, because you probably should not do this alone. And Tony in the episode is just like, well, who's gonna help me? Like, who's gonna go on and and be somebody that I can like trust with my equipment? Because when I'd go on to see that Shield is going on and using it, all of a sudden it gets into Hydra's hands, and I'm like, what the heck? There's a leak here. So, and even Tony didn't even want to go on and give his tech to Shield. Shield just kind of steals it and takes it for their own, to where Tony is going on like, hey, who's your tailor in this bit of episode? So Tony goes on and faces off against Hydra, goes on to have some of the characters arrested, which leads to Grim Reaper getting the big reveal of trying to bust out Stroker, or Stroker, yeah, I think that's that guy's name, Baron Von Stroker. It's been a while, so for me to go on and remember certain Marvel names. So if anything, I'm kind of questioning, kind of going off the top of my dome instead of having any visuals in front of me for some of these characters. So we have in the second episode, we go on to have Thor facing off against the Wrecking Crew. Which, in all honesty, like when looking at the names of these characters, I thought like the Wrecking Crew had names like Crowbar and all these other things. But like when I'm going through and looking at all these names, I'm like, why is it that the one character who has like the crowbar, like his name is like Wrecker, and we have like Pile Driver. I'm like, what are these, like wrestling moves? Like what goofy names are all these characters? Um, as well as also like, why is it that this Wrecking Crew just has like these weird goofy names? Um, but I guess maybe that's always what their names were. I don't know. Like somebody help me with that. Uh, so Thor goes on and takes out the Wrecking Crew, meets up with Jane, and then Heimdall goes on and tells Thor, "Hey, yeah, downtown Milky Way, yeah, make your way back to the to Asgard." Because you need to go on and realize that your father is getting into the Odin sleep. So, yeah, you need to go on and you need to make your way back to Asgard to protect Asgard from these frost giants that are attacking. Having us come to find out that Loki is leading the charge with these frost giants, very much like the first Thor film, and also we end up getting characters that are actually more unique, that were never in any of the Thor films, like Enchantress was, to be put here instead of characters like Hela. But we do have Executioner also with alongside her. So, of course, they go on, have Thor take out all the frost giants, face off against Loki, and then Enchantress goes on and frees Loki from the prison he ends up getting kind of Phantom zoned away from. That I know that's a superhero or Superman reference, but whatever. So we then go on into the third episode, which is Hulk versus the World. So this bit of episode kind of feels very much like how the Incredible Hulk movie was, where Banner is going on with his little laptops and like secretly hiding away his face from all police and hoping that he'll be able to hide away from Hulkbuster Ross military uh, forces that are coming in to towns to try to seek out the Hulk. So Hulk slash Banner tries to go on and make his way to a diner to meet up with the Absorbing Man and starts to talk about his time at the super prison, and eventually the more that Absorbing Man starts talking to Hulk, the Absorbing Man's like, yeah, I know exactly who you are, like I know you're the Hulk, so let's go on and let's fight it out here. And Hulk goes on to take the Absorbing Man and put him in a kind of big deserted area for them to face off against. And so Absorbing Man's like, like you try to get me in seclusion, like away from everybody. But I think the better strategy here was to try to get Absorbing Man away from everything, so that way he has a hard time being able to really use or latch on to anything, as far as minerals or elements or whatever to go on and make himself eventually more powerful. At some point, like Absorbing Man just connects with the dirt, or with rocks, and Hulk is like, "Dude, you're stupid. Like, I can go on and easily break rocks. How dumb are you?" So we then get Hawkeye and Widow to come in to to try and stop this battle from going on, to try and obtain the Hulk, because if anything, Ross has done such a bang up job obtaining him himself and having less collateral damage always being occurring during that. If you were to go on and tune into the Incredible Hulk animated series, which honestly, in its early parts of it, we get characters like Ghost Rider and a number of just interesting stories going on there with Rick Jones or whatever his name is, that I think is voiced by Luke Perry. Bit of interesting show there, but also like for those of you that are just Hulk fans, uh, and are to really just latch on to all that kind of Hulk like stuff, because I'm sure people are going on and still talking about like the Lou Ferrigno Hulk to this day. I just gone on and just had some people that were talking about it. Anyways, so uh, we we have the point in the episode where, and the reason why I was getting to the whole Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk thing is we'd have a point where Banner is just walking at the street, and I was hoping that he was gonna thumbs up, just so that we can go on and we can remember the Hulk. Like I wish he would have gone on and done that. That would have been pretty interesting. So Hawkeye and Widow. Let's get back to this. Hawkeye and Widow eventually have their own story where we'd find out that someone here is to be a double agent, and that one of them is going to get arrested, and that we come to find that one of them is working for Hydra. Ooh, yeah, like we have to go on and we have to go back to like the Winter Soldier days of the MCU, and just have that like Shield is corrupted by the Hydra, because we always have to have that kind of story going on. Like it's forever going to end up being that kind of story for seemingly the MCU, where we have to go on and still hope that there's going to be some Hydra leak somewhere going on at Shield. So then we get to the fourth episode where we meet Captain America. Captain America Of course, we have to go through the whole origin of this character because we've never gone on and heard it, right? So, guy goes on to get super serum, ends up going from a shrimp to a big, muscular, massive dude, a behemoth of masculinity, and whatever. And so, Steve Rogers goes on and faces alongside Bucky, who is to be a way much more smaller character than Cap is. And strangely, like, he becomes like the Robin to Cap's Batman, which is very weird. Like, I would think that they would go on and kind of be of similar like age and look to them, but like that's why I like the MCU version much more so than I like this, because it's like very Batman and Robin. It's very weird. Like, I don't like how young Bucky is, but I guess there's probably a point to that anyways. So Steve goes on and faces off, of course, against the Red Skull because that's his iconic character. Also, for his origin, we always have to have the Red Skull. So Captain America goes on and faces off in this mansion or castle of a place to find that there is realms getting unraveled and Bifrost frost giants going on and wreaking havoc. As Red Skull doesn't really know what exactly he's getting into by realm hopping, and we have also Captain America who's facing off against monsterish ogre wolf-like things of a strange nature. But also, it kind of lends to something actually very interesting for this episode. All it ends up catering towards is basically giving us Captain America, his origin, where we also bring in King the Conqueror, who is to, of course, be realizing that Captain America being resurrected back into a timeline that was to have forgot that he exists is to ruin Kang's future because the existence of Captain America. So Kang has to go on through Cap's timeline and figure out exactly when was the moment where Captain America was to reappear and become the leader of the Avengers to then kill off Kang's future or destroy his timeline. So, then we get to the last episode, which is the Man in the Man Hill. So, we would, of course, go on and realize that we have to kind of blend where Claw is in with both the story of Ant-Man and the Wasp, but also in Black Panther's story also, where we'd come to find that all this is about hunting down vibranium, as it seems that Pym is to have some vibranium, which he got from Wakanda, and Claw is hoping to steal from Pym to then turn around and use this vibranium weapon to take out T'Chaka, who is T'Challa's father, and have M'Baku be able to win this war, or this battle, against T'Chaka to reign over Wakanda. And we also have T'Challa that is to go on and get the, of course, kind of he's to go on and get the legacy of his father to go on and become the Black Panther himself. That's the whole kind of crux of this whole last bit of episode here. Other than that, I think, yeah, if anything else, I'll probably have to go on and I'll probably go over more in detail with the spoiler part of this, which I'm sure a lot of people go on and probably not exactly click through. But if anything, one little bit of Easter eggs, besides all of the Marvel characters that are kind of being put into really selling this cartoon or animated thing. Through the bit of episodes we go on, we see these like brief clips of stuff like Modocs and all these kind of other prisoners that are just kind of briefly there for seconds in clips and such. Uh, we'd have Stroker that is involved with Grim Reaper, with the whole Shield thing. That is really very interesting. With Hydra, we'd also go on and find in the Ant-Man and the Wasp in that episode, uh, we'd come to find that Claw's mercenaries all look like the mercenaries from the movie Predator. It's kind of goofy and funny. We'd find that the Wasp faces off against Whirlwind, also in that last bit of episodes, and she goes on to just coincidentally like find that Whirlwind is kind of going on and attacking this laboratory, this college laboratory. She goes after him, and then he goes on and he gets locked into this super prison and realize like, hey, all you guys have like superpowers, why don't you use them? And then we come to find out why he shouldn't. uh I want to try to think if there's anything that I kind of left out here, because I think that there was maybe like one more to that last bit of episode that I kind of left kind of out there. uh yeah, so all of this is to eventually realize that the breakout bit of episodes is going to be the bigger thing of the show. So hopefully, people will let me know how important this is to them, so I can go on and just and hopefully cover more of this. But I know shows for a lot of people, like I'm all over the place. Like I'm all over the place. I wish that I definitively knew that there was stuff that did mass numbers, and I can definitely go on and be like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go on and watch this throughout however long. Like there was some anime stuff that just kind of slipped by me, and I just decided to just be like, well, like I'll eventually get to it, because I know it's actually doing well, but it just like I don't know, I just kept doing other projects. I just kept thinking that like, oh, I found this big movie or show, believe me, and like this is gonna be the big one, and then I realized that it just does nothing. So I just kept hoping and hoping that I would find bigger projects, and just it never happened. And then the channel has just kind of really sunk numbers wise and everything across the board. But hey, I still have a good number of people that have all subscribed, a lot of people who have gone on and really kept on to see where this channel will head, and I hope I can keep going on in some ways to keep putting out content and figuring out where is the best course of action of what to do next. As there's like an overwhelming amount of content going on right now, there's a lot of me that already had like a bajillion titles and names and stuff that I was hoping to cover, and then also um, there is things that goes on in the news that kind of becomes a precedent of like, well, I probably should go on and I should cover Avengers stuff, or I should cover superhero things, because I've kind of been lackadaisical about that. So yeah, like I'm just trying to go on and just gotta catch them all, I guess, at this point. Man, I wish what I would have gone on and started this channel. I wish I would have gone on and said like, okay, if I'm gonna do this thing, I'm going to do this in a very strategic, a very specific manner, where, like, if I start something, I'm going to finish it. Or if I go on and I do like, when I started off, like, hence why, like, um, there was so much, like, an itch to just be like, man, if I only just started over, like, if I started everything from scratch and I went back to square one, on the very first day that I did this channel, like I still would have had to have a huge number of things to do. But at least I would go on and like I would try and balance things a little bit better. Um, to realize that, like, especially when it comes down to a lot of the show stuff, because I'm so scatterbrained about it, that um, I wish I could have gone on and organized this a little bit better and just been like, okay, like instead of doing like 5 episodes, um, I'll go on and I'll do a movie, but then I'll do an episode of this here, I'll do an episode of that there, and that may have gone on and done a little bit better than me just going on. And like when I did this channel, like I covered whole seasons of things, I covered whole um uh 10 episodes, 20 episodes, da 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 da. Like I really try to go on and did a lot of things in uh in a way of which that now is to just be like, okay, well, I did all the easy stuff in the beginning of this channel. Now I'm gotten to the point where everything has to be like the most complex project because that's the only thing that's left to tackle at this point. So I wish I could have gone on and chosen my projects wiser. But if anything, I'm still having that problem now. So with that said, let's go on and let's get into the nitty gritty spoiler details of these episodes. So I'll probably be here for a good long time getting into every bit of this. When we get to the Easter egg points, I think a lot of people go on and naturally assume that I'm probably going to say every single villain's name and whatever. And honestly, when it got to like the prison Easter eggs of stuff, there were things where I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to say the name of everybody. If anything, the show kind of does that anyways. Plus, also like there are obviously certain characters that no one's gonna probably care the name of. Like no one's probably gonna care that I know Mandrill, right? The baboon-looking character that's in the background of one of the prison scenes. Um, if anything, eventually most of these characters at some point will get used more into the show. These little Easter egg things like Zemos and Urzolas and and like everything in between, like Graviton, will eventually get used more. If he hadn't gone on to also been used in Marvel Agents of Shield, because while I was going on and watching quite a bit of this, I kept harping on looking back on Agents of Shield of how kind of similar some of this stuff feels. But anyways, let's go on and say that it's about that time yet again to go into the normal song and dance of things, and then also go on to realize that my phone shut off because I've just been gabbing for this whole time. So it is about that time yet again to, of course, go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I get to spoil these bit of episodes. Let me know in the comments below what is your favorite Marvel MCU animated or also live action thing that maybe I may not have already covered on the channel. Also, superhero stuff in general, just plop it down in below. Even if it's like, if you feel like it's weird or obscure, like Darkwing Ducks or some other goofy things. At some point, I may be even tempted to cover any of that stuff on the channel. And I know also I've already been speaking for 30 minutes, and a lot of people are like, man, like, why would anybody watch this whole video? I understand. Um, but if anything, I'm just having fun talking about this stuff anyways. I want to see how long this video will probably take to do. Because if it goes well, then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll try to tailor back a little bit of how I put these, because that's the whole thing. I always go into every one of these videos and like I realize how long they take. So I try to figure out a way to maybe like cut through some things. But anyways, it's about that time to cut through these bit of episodes here. So let's go on and let's start getting into them. So spoiler territory. So the beginning of this is Iron Man is born. So we have two guys that are kind of on this at this like kind of pier, this bridge by this water, and all of a sudden there's just this massive generic giant robot that they just call a giant robot, and they don't call it much else other than that. And we come to see that there is an explosion that goes off. Iron Man is going on and saving people, as it seems that uh, there is to be at a point where these pieces and chunks of these robots is coming flying at these people. And as the news goes on and covers this, as Rhodey and Tony are going on and watching it via their car, here's where we go on and have Rhodey talking to Tony about like, well, hey, like having you go on and face off against this big, huge, massive robot thing, like you really need help at this point. And how would you kind of let Shield help you? Like, how about you go on and like you've already started to build weapons for Shield, like uh why don't you let Shield kind of help you take out monsters like this? And Tony goes on and says like, well, hey, yeah, like he goes on and he goes and talks about how like huge the monster was and how basically he's not listening to Rhodey, blah 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 blah. He's kind of just silencing him out. Tony and Rhodey make their way to the Stark Tower, where Tony goes on and meets up with Pepper, and Tony goes on and makes a joke about how Pepper is to be his valet for how she was waiting for him to kind of park his car. And Pepper goes on to explain to Tony about Hydra attacking the United Nations, and that should be something he should go on and be focusing on right now. And that's the reason why she's there. So Tony, Rhodey, and Pepper are making their way to a big lavish live screen that is to show the United Nations getting attacked by Hydrobots and Hydro. This is not Hydro Man. Hydra bots and Hydra dreadnoughts. So Pepper Potts goes on and explains about how this specific United Nations has every single public leader there, even the United States president. So Tony, it seems, is to need to be in a meeting right now, or he has some kind of business going on. But Tony goes on and says like, "Hey, give me a couple of minutes." Because if anything, like Hydra, I guess to Iron Man is a pushover. That'll be an easy thing for him to solve. So Tony makes his way to his housing of the Iron Man Mark 6. So this is to be right after the first Iron Man. Because, yeah, we come to find that at some point in, I think, like the Avengers and stuff like that, I think there is like Mark 6s and 7s and stuff like that that eventually will go on and be a part of those films. But also, we have the animated stuff that goes on and has their own kind of Mark 6s and whatever's. But, anyways, so Tony goes flying off, and so we see that Hydra faces off against what looks like a police force that has kind of laser weapons. So this huge, massive Hydro bot comes in that has this like huge, giant head and then tentacles. It looks very much like a massive octopus or a squid or whatever. And we'd come to find that Iron Man quite quickly uses his unibeam, which is to be a big AoE or a big attack that Iron Man tends to do, and that tends to deplete quite a bit of his battery life. You would think that Iron Man would figure out a way of like solar panels or something to go on and kind of better recharge the Iron Man suit. Uh, but I guess they never quite figured that out in the either the MCUs or the shows or anything like that at some point. Like you would think that Iron Man would figure out some kind of ways of figuring out how to best either that or like how we'd have Tony eventually going on and having like the whole Hulkbuster thing where like this stuff would just kind of continue to be just kind of sent to him, and we'd have him at some points figuring out ways to kind of switch out his arc reactors, and that would go on and be a kind of interesting thing going on in the MCU. So, anyways, as Tony goes on and is to have shot out the Unibeam, and Jarvis is to tell him at like what percentage the power is. Tony goes on and is to have like a megaphone through his helmet to go on and speak to the Hydras and explain to them it's like, well, hey, you try to go on and you've been trying to take over the world for 60 years. Like, if it didn't happen 60 years ago, it's not going to happen today. So, if anything, like, give it up. So, Hydra goes on and is to take out this rocket launcher, and Tony is shocked by the fact that the Hydra is going on and attacking him in this manner. He's like, really? Like, like they're gonna shoot at me? like these guys are nothing. So Iron Man locks on to all of the Hydra's weapons and has this like projectile like thing that locks onto all the weapons and I think electrifies all of them to where they kind of or disarm themselves. And then Iron Man goes on and is to find that there's a bunch of Hydra agents hiding behind this car. Iron Man picks up the car, and then all of a sudden, here's where the Hydra dreadnoughts come in. Because Iron Man was thinking like, oh yeah, I can go on and just easily just kind of sweep up these Hydra agents. It'll be no issue. But then we come to find that Dreadnought comes in, and then Iron Man's like, oh, maybe I should probably go on and realize that this is going to be a bigger threat than I thought. Like, this isn't going to be as a pushover as I thought it was going to be. So Tony goes on and tells Jarvis that he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to go on and be a little bit more later to that meeting than I thought it was. And also, Jarvis is telling Tony what percentage of, I think like 32%, like, hey, yeah, you should probably recharge your battery because eventually you're going to run out here. So the dreadnoughts go on and say target acquired. They're going on. They're facing off against Iron Man here. So while this is going on, we have the helicarrier. We have, and it's been a while since helicarrier time period of Shield. But also, if you look at like Ultimate Spider-Mans and stuff like that, like there seemingly always is like if you go through a lot of the animated stuff, you'd always come to find at some point that there is to be Shield and Nick Fury with a helicarrier. Like I think even in the '90s Spider-Man, I think there was like a helicarrier somewhere, right? Like I think maybe I'm a little bit lost in that one, but like. But yeah, at some point we'd go on to see so many helicarriers and so many versions of the Marvel animated shows at some point to kind of be, I guess, a real sign of the times. Anyways, so it'd be interesting to kind of see, like, in more modern Marvel stuff, like, what are they doing with, if there is a shield, or if, like, what are they kind of doing with superhero stuff now in the most current form. Uh, like the last thing I remember is like the superhero squad, and that's all I remember, where they just kind of lump a bunch of superheroes together and have them face off against a number of big villains. Anyways, uh, so Hill is basically telling Fury, uh, that Shield is making their way to the Hydra United, or is making their way to the United Nations to try to intercept Hydra, and also that Iron Man has arrived. And Nick Fury is like, well, hey, like let's not go on and let's not fight Iron Man. Like that's not what we're here for. So as Iron Man is starting to get a pounding from the dreadnoughts, Tony is trying to hope that he can convert all his power to his shields to protect himself. And at some point, Tony will go on when he talks about his shielding. He eventually finds that the dreadnoughts also use shielding themselves. Like, hey, you stole my tech. That's the same kind of shielding that I do. And then he'd come to find that a lot of the Hydra is to have, or well, is also shields have the exact same tech that he has, as if they stole it from him. And he's getting more and more upset the more and more he realizes that these people are kind of stealing his tech and using it against him in this fight. So Tony goes on to continue to fight against Hydra, and one of the dreadnoughts goes on. It has this like drill that changes into his hand, and like Tony is going on and holding this thing back, which it honestly doesn't make sense about how he's doing it, because he wouldn't be able to hold this arm at all. As it's continuing to drill, it makes no real rational sense of what's going on here. Um, but anyways, um, Tony eventually gets desperate to put the drill into the ground next to him to use his repulsors against, of course, the dreadnoughts, because that's all he has power enough to do. And here's where the shielding comes in, and he gets upset. So the further that Tony at this point is now pleading for these shields, and the further along that this goes, Tony is just like, you know what, Jarvis, like, have me never go on and wake up ever again. Like, have me never go on and have me an alarm clock for anything for any of my days, because I'm freaking done at this point. So Pepper is going on to never want to watch any of Iron Man's fighting because she always fears the worst. And Rhodey is to go on and say, it's like, hey, like that armor, like that's invincible. Like if anything, like Tony will survive anything. And like it's nice that we have like this kind of side character stuff, but also like what does it really do for the show? Like we don't really see much of Rhodey and Pepper at some certain point of the show past this point. Like we really go on and we focus more on the Avengers team, and they get grouped up together, and it gets more and more rare that we actually see Pepper or Rhodey or much of them, because really past a certain point, for a lot of this origin stuff, we kind of just bottle it in here, and then we go on to really just have the Avengers just be just lumped in together. So much so at the tower or wherever they are at, from memory of the show. I think they all get lumped into the tower, from memory serves, and I think that's probably why eventually they try to get the Avengers like out of the tower, because there was too much content that was all very same, where they kept having them all in the tower and just kind of being grouped together. So I think that's why we'd start to see stuff where they're trying to tear the Avengers apart and separate them and try and get them away from like mansions and other um, and other things besides the towers and stuff like that because we did too much of that for a long stretch of time. Anyways, so Iron Man goes on to start chucking around the dreadnoughts, and eventually starts ripping Stark Industry tech from out of them, going on and saying, "Hey, this is mine. This has my name on it." So, so we have one of the Hydra agents that is hoping to take Tony out by pulling this rocket launcher out, and we find a Hydra agent that puts a gun to the Hydra agent and takes him out. Like, hey, what the heck is going on here? There's a whole secret agenda going on that I guess not all the Hydra agents were privy to. So, really, what is actually going on in this mission is that Hydra agents do actually want to go on and get captured here, like Grim Reaper, that is to have been the one that takes out the other Hydra agent. So, because he's going to go in to Shield's headquarters and free Stroker, and the two of them are going to get the heck out of there. And so, uh, as Tony is facing off against this dreadnought with the shielding, and then at some point there's to be a bit of dreadnought fire breath, we'd finally have where Tony is able to use the unibeam again and blast away the dreadnought. And then all of a sudden, here is where finally Shield comes in and starts to even the odds. And as Shield comes in, they're going on and they're saying how they're the strategic homeland individual enforcement. man, man, that is quite a mouthful. Just call a Shield. Yeah, we get it. Anyways, so we'd have Iron Man that is looking at the Shield armor here. It's like, ah, yeah, that looks very familiar. Who's your tailor? And where'd you get that tech from? And so Iron Man is scanning all of the mandroids, which are to be connected from Shield, and he starts to realize how there's like 7 different pieces from Stark Industry that they stole from him. And Hill is going on and turning to fury, like, "Oh yeah, he scanned our mandroids." So what? He's freaking Iron Man. Of course he's gonna do it. So Tony goes on and sees one of the dreadnoughts coming back from the dead. And so he wants to go on and he wants to save the Shield operatives from getting attacked here. Probably should have just let him get killed. But because what happens or occurs is Tony having to kind of take the Shield guys out to get to the dreadnought anyways. But also the Shield guys start to go on and start attacking Iron Man because they were thinking that he was going to attack them, and he's like, "No, I'm just trying to get to this dreadnought, but you guys are in my freaking way." So the Shield all start blasting onto Iron Man, where he kind of braces for the impact of that. So Iron Man goes on, pushes in repulsor rays, repulsors, the Shield guys, takes out the dreadnought, and he then takes one of the mandroids and rips away the helmet and figures out the location of where Shield is through this helicarrier. So, or finds out where the helicarrier is, goes on and speaks with Fury and like, "Hey, like, you stole my tech." So Iron Man, helmet and all, goes on and speaks with Fury. And Hill goes on and takes a gun right to Tony's head. Like, what is that going to do? So, Tony is upset that Fury is to have taken pieces of his tech because Hydra is to have stealed that tech also. And Tony is to accuse Fury of having leaks being done into S.H.I.E.L.D. But uh, Tony is to have gone on and worked alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. for as Tony has become Iron Man. So there's easy reasoning for how Shield was to go on and kind of steal a lot of his technologies, as well as also with Hydra being involved in Shield technically in some aspects of it, how that gets leaked also. So Shield is going to explain to Tony how they basically modified what already they were given by him as far as technology was to be concerned, and that's how they came into eventually the armor uh, that they built. So Tony walks off and leaves Hydra, and we of course have Shield that goes on to tell Hill, it's like, okay, we have a leak now. We know that we have a leak. So if anything, that's our next mission. That's our next agenda. Let's figure that out. So we'd have the Hydra agents all going on and getting put into, I think, Quinjets. I think it's the is it is that I always get the X Jets and the Quinjets, all those kind of confused in Marvel stuff. Like if someone is to say, "Oh yeah, Quinjet is the Marvel thing," then I'm sorry I got that confused. Um, yeah, I always get those kind of baffled. Like, yeah, if anything, I'm just so used to uh, Quinjet being said somewhere. So all these Hydrans are making their way to the vault, and so Tony is to now make his way back to the housing to unarmor himself, and he's met up with Potts and Rhodey. So they talk about how Tony is late for his meeting, and here's where Rhodey again pitches Tony that he doesn't need to do this all alone, and Tony's like, yeah, like if anything, like there's so many things kind of going on right now. There's Shield, there's giant robots, there's supervillains. Like the whole world is kind of against Tony, and he's having to put it all on his shoulders. And so Tony does realize that Pepper and Rhodey are there for him, but who's really Tony going to need to, or who is Tony going to be able to really ask for help that is going to actually make their way to the battlefield to even the odds? Like, who is Tony to really call upon um, when all of these things are to really go on and be wreaking havoc upon the world? So now we cut to Nick Fury going on and speaking to some of his Shield members, and making his way to the vault. And so they go on and they talk about the vault. They talk about how it's a criminal prison, and it's a way of which to handle both the prisoners and also their gear. That of course there are certain elements about them that go on and can't be handled in a regular prison. Supposedly it was designed by Tony Stark before he was to go on and kind of no longer do stuff for the Shield. But anyways, so they start to go on and they start to reference some of the prisoners within the vault, like characters like Technivore or MODOK or Crimson Dynamo, uh, which quite a bit of them are kind of classic Iron Man villain, like Crimson Dynamo is, and MODOK. MODOK, I think, kind of goes all over the place. He's kind of an AIM character, but yeah, but like if anything, yeah, like we kind of get to like eventually MODOK kind of becomes like actually a face of a lot of things. He's even gone on to have like his own show at some point, like which his own show like there wasn't really much of an effort to put out an actual like MODOK show. It was just like, hey, here's some goofy weird crap of a thing that like they gave MODOK like a family and like they made him very like Family Guy-ish. Like it was very weird. Um, what they're doing with MODOK because it's like, okay, this is not really enough of a superhero show to justify um, people's real interest. Like people were going into this thinking like, oh, we're gonna get another superhero show, and they'd find they'd get this like sitcom family thing that like this is not what we wanted. So it's like okay, like whatever they were trying to do to just put out content that they hope people were gonna get intrigued by. But in the names of things, they also mentioned Baron or Wolfgang von Strucker. I think I know. Yeah, Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. They go through his whole freaking huge name. So Strucker, for some reason, I thought it was Stroker. Maybe that's a weird gutter roll of my brain. But anything. So Strucker uh, is eventually to be the one that gets freed by Grim Reaper here, but we'll get to that. So, as the Shield go through all the Hydra tech, there is to be this duffel bag that has this arm or this amputated arm being put in place into it, and we'd find that that duffel bag is to house Strucker's arm, where he goes on and he touches people and he sucks the youth out of them, kind of like Vulture does in the Spider-Man stuff, where he'd go on and just suck the youth out of people. That seems to be kind of his marquee thing that he tends to do for that character. So the Shield is going on looking at all the Hydra gear and is also sending a lot of Hydra agents through this X-ray thing to kind of see if they have any like kind of tech or anything that can go on and be a thing that they have to be kind of worried about that maybe they'll try to break out of prison with. And all of a sudden, one of the guys find that there's this radar thing going off on the Grim Reaper's arm, and so they whip out their guns, and so it's to be revealed that Grim Reaper is to rip out his knife arm and start crashing through this X-ray machine to face off against Shield and take them all out. While also Fury and Hill have made their way to Strucker to try to be asking him information about what Hydra is planning. And they don't really get much information, but Fury is to say, it's like, no, we get quite a bit of information for what Strucker is to say. Like, obviously, there is something going on that's really big, and it's going to happen really soon. And, like, without even talking to Strucker, like, oddly, that's what Fury just gets out of that to tell us, the viewer, what's going on in the story. So, here's where Grim Reaper meets up with both Hill and both Fury. Hill whips her gun out, and she whips her thing out. So, Fury's like, oh, Reaper, you're here. Oh, you're going to go on, you're going to free Strucker? Oh, yeah, that's your game plan? All right, okay. So Grim Reaper goes on, is to throw his duffel bag at Hill, and then starts to duke it out with Fury. And then as Reaper leaves to get to Strucker, he grabs a duffel bag. So as Reaper goes on and frees Strucker, he goes on and hands him this red fist, or uh, amp, uh, this red armored uh, arm. So Strucker takes it. He starts to glow. So as Shield agents start to blast their way through Reaper and Strucker, Strucker goes on and grabs one of the Shield agents so that way he can become youthful again. And the two of them get into this car that the wheels adjust down and they could hover and they could fly off. Fury runs after them, jumps onto the car, and as Fury is trying to get to attacking these guys, Strucker grabs Fury by the face and de-ages him to where we can go on and see a Fury that has like the salt and pepper and is to look kind of much more older. So that's how we get there. We don't get to how he lost the eye in this this one, but anyways. So, because I guess that's only served for Captain Marvel films, I guess. Yeah, whatever. The way in which that they went about that is the is way. Like, oh yeah, that's how he loses the eye. Oh, because we have to kind of make a joke out of it. So, as Fury continues to face off against Strucker and Reaper, there is a point in the battle uh, where Fury does go on Chuck Strucker, and Hill is to drop onto the arm of Strucker before he can go on and do anything like, I caught you. And then Fury is just going on facing off against Reaper. Fury goes on to eventually plant a explosive onto Reaper's scythe or his sword hand, and then Reaper is to realize, oh, there's an explosive there, and poof. Uh, both of them seemingly are to be flying off. They're not killed, neither one of them, because of course they aren't. And Reaper ends up getting smashed into this bit of snow. So while Fury goes on and he glides his way because he has this like weird glider kind of thing going on. It's kind of like which actually the whole glider thing actually does make sense. Like that is actually a cool idea because like yeah, you know how many times that these characters will probably go on and be falling from a long stretch of somewhere. So it's kind of cool that they have this glider thing built in. It's kind of like Spider-Man. For a number of years, he would have like these web gliding things that he'd be known for as far as a costume, and everybody would be trying to like replicate that, and like it'd be the staple for Spider-Man for a very long time to have those glider like wings, um, which it's kind of weird that like that people would go on and try to avoid that kind of idea of Spider-Man doing that, which like if anything they should probably lean into it even more so to try to get back to traditional Spider-Man looks and whatever. So, uh, so they imprison Reaper. They go on and they start asking him questions and such, which of course they get nowhere with it. So, they really have to push and they have to talk about how many different mega prisons or max prisons they are. And Hill doesn't even know about all of them existing, but Fury does. Uh, Talking about the big house, the cube, and the vault, which is this place that they're in now, and so Fury goes on and mentions about how 4 prisons there are, and Hill only thought that there were three. So we now cut to the mighty Thor, or Thor the Mighty, this next episode. So we go on and we have both the Wrecker and also another guy known as Thunderball, which I was like, Thunderball? Like, I thought that his name was maybe like Boulder or something like that. But I guess if you have um, Balder, Balder the Brave, or the Asgardian, like I think a lot of people are like, man, you're getting the names confused. So I guess you're having Thunderball. Strange. I'm not gonna probably remember that either. So both Wrecker and Thunderball from the Wrecking Crew, they make their way to this crate site. They break through this bit of, I think, Stark tech or something like that, to eventually find this device that is to be kind of like a weaponized bazooka. It's very strange looking. So as we'd find the Wrecking Crew to be taking out policemen and all kinds of things here, of threat of eventually leading to Thor being the one that kind of really steps in here. We'd have Jane Foster with her kind of sidekick next to her, and I have no idea who this guy is. Uh, Jane goes on and is to be running to this site for how a lot of people are getting um, attacked and maimed and killed here. So everybody's uh, going on and needing to act quick here because it's code blue. So we'd have Pile Driver coming in, and he smashes into this car because he's kind of like the muscle guy. But all these guys are kind of the muscle guys, so it's kind of hard to define Pile Driver as. Like, I guess he has like a lot of impact. But anyways, so shortly thereafter, that bulldozer comes in, and he's kind of like the Juggernaut of character. He's really just looks identical to Juggernaut in too many ways. To where if you would go on and if you would call him Juggernaut, I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh yeah, yeah, that's who he is, right? He's the X-Men character because he looks just like him. If you look at the Deadpool version of Juggernaut in those live action movies, looks just the freaking same. So the Wrecking Crew like easily dodges bullets and a number of other things. Jane finds a number of policemen to go on and kind of put them on gurneys and give them neck braces. And Jane is telling her other paramedic, like, hey, come on, help me out. Like, I need you to go on and help me out with these things. Like, and the guy's like, are you crazy? Like, all these supervillains are going on and they're attacking people and they're killing people, and you want me to go on and help you? Like, so the Wrecker and Bulldozer continue to attack people, as we then have the Thunderball that is like, well, hey, let's see what this weird kooky weapon does. So as that is to go on and have like the hitting of buttons and trying to figure out how to use this weapon, all of a sudden Thunderball ends up getting thrown quite a distance into this crate, or into this crate, into this. I always get the names kind of confused. What this is? I call it a trailer, but a lot of people could go on and call it a number of other things. Uh, like shipping containers. Like, I guess you can call it that. So I'll call it shipping containers. I'll go with that. So Thunderball ends up getting flown into a shipping container, and it smashes. And we'd come to find that he was to have been accosted, or was to have been attacked by Mjolnir as it comes back into Thor's hand. Thor comes flying in, and is to start attacking Pile Driver. As Pile Driver starts to take Thor down, here's where the Wrecker comes in and starts to attack Thor with his crowbar or his weird, estranged, what looks like crowbar of choice. So Thor goes on and evens the odds with Mjolnir to have both Wrecker's crowbar and Mjolnir kind of um, raised above the air. So Thor goes on and weirdly continues to talk to the wrecking crew about mercy and about honor and everything in between. And these guys are like, dude, we're bad guys. Like, we don't have to do any of this. Like, you're talking to the wrong people. Like, you're assuming that these bad guys are gonna go on and be honorable and be like the Knights of the Round Table kind of go on and kind of do this in the morally right way. No, 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 no. Like, if anything, that has gone through the bygone era of the past. Um, where stuff like that doesn't happen anymore. Like, if anything, like if Thor is going to get ganged up on here because of the numbers game, and if if people are going to cheat to win, give them a low blow and whatever, like that's what they're going to do. So as Thor is struggling with the Wrecker, Thunderbolt comes in to chuck his ball and chain to have uh, the crate container, the freight container, the shipping container. There we go. The shipping container fall onto Thor as well as also the uh, the crane that is also holding up the shipping container is also to fall on top of Thor also. And so the wrecking crew is hovering over Thor's body and they laugh at Thor going on and saying, like how like what do they call him? The Almighty Thor? Huh? Like, well, he's actually the big almighty idiot. Ha ha ha! And they start laughing. So Thor appears from the rubble and he meets up with Wrecker again. Wrecker is beholding the hostage of Jane Foster. And here's, of course, where again Thor is like, well, hey, are you going to fight honorably? Or are you going to go on and not take this woman as a hostage? And Wrecker is just like you're talking to the wrong guy. So Thor goes on to say, it's like, well, like if you're gonna go on and if you're gonna do some underhanded things, well, like I hope you'll understand when I go on and I have things that attack you from behind. And Wrecker's like, what? From behind? All of a sudden, Mjolnir comes flying in, smacks Wrecker, takes him out, and then Thor recollects Mjolnir from his hand. Then Thor goes on and starts talking to Jane Foster, mentioning like, well, hey, like you have no armor. Like if anything, you're not a warrior, but if anything, like you go into the field of battle and you're helping all these people. And Jane's like, well, it's my job, it's what I do, like it's the right thing to do. And so Jane introduces herself, and then all of a sudden Heimdall from up above is going on and calling for Thor to make his way back to Asgard, because of course Asgard is under siege. So then Thor needs to go on and make his way back to Asgard. But then says fairly well to Jane Foster. So Thor makes his way through the Rainbow Bridge to find out that Asgard is under siege by frost giants. We come to find that a number of Asgard warriors are getting attacked by frost giants, and we come to find that frost giants are kind of jumping through these bridges, or jumping through parts of Asgard, trying to knock down these bridges, trying to have it to where it's an easy entry for more of these frost giants to make their way through. So that way, Jotunheim can continue to attack Asgard. As some of the Asgard uh, people start to find out what is going on, they are to stop their whole dancing and like belly dancing. It's very strange and very weird. Like I guess they're in their party mode because they don't think anything of it. And then they come to find that rocks are getting uh, chucked into Asgard. Uh, Things are starting to buckle and starting uh, to get some destruction here as the frost giants are going on and attacking Asgard. So we then have Loki that makes his way with the frost giants going on and kind of leading them to tell them to not stop until he can get to the throne of the throne of Asgard. So, because of course Loki wants to go on and be the rightful lord of it. So, if anything, like there are some Asgardian people which that kind of the names kind of escape me. Like if anything, I don't really know or remember ever the Warriors 3 that well, or Lady Sith and whatever. Or I don't even understand why they have to call themselves Warriors 3 or whatever that they have the title of. Because feasibly, like, you have Volstagg, you have Fandral, and I think that you have God, what is the one guy? Um, Hogan. I don't know how to pronounce that. Um, yeah, we have all of those characters, and I never remember their names, but I'm saying them now because I really had to go on and just be like, is that their names? We also like the thing that I did like about this though is we had Balder the Brave in here because normally we never have that. Like, if anything, there are a lot of times where I think people were hoping that at some point in Asgard they were going to have Balder in here, but it just never happened in the MCU. Or it seems that this character was just continuing to be forgotten about by a number of things and it just never comes up. Which I don't know why. Like, if anything, like I guess the reason why the avoidance of that has always happened is probably because they don't want you to know that Thor had another brother. I think Boulder the Brave is another brother of Thor. So I think they just want to continue to just kind of avoid that kind of idea that that Thor had like multiple siblings and what like Hela is also to be Thor's sibling. So yeah, they always I think try to like always have it just to be so focused on Thor and Loki and no one else really has to exist at this point. Anyways, so you would think at some story there would probably maybe be a variant or something going on that would kind of be of an interest to plop down and maybe some of these MCU stuff, but uh, with with Doom being such a big thing in the next film of Doomsday, beyond some of the Spider-Man stuff that's coming out in a couple weeks from now. Anyways, so and supposedly they've gone on to probably say that Doom is not working alone. That will sound interesting to be like, okay, who's going to be working alongside of him? Theory crafting wise, I'm probably thinking that it's Sinister, but if anything, like it would be kind of an interesting idea to go with Sinister. But I don't know if we're really going to lean into that. And if I'm wrong, then that's fine because it'll just be like, okay, like we just have Doom and that's it. Um, but I think they should have some kind of X-Men kind of villain in there. I'm hoping. So, okay. So we have Volstagg, and he's going on, and he's ripping off a bit of turkey to then go into the battle. Thor makes his way into Asgard to go on and kind of grab the shoulder of Heimdall to then go on and and tell Heimdall it's like, hey, I'm going to go on, I'm going to take out some of these frost giants, and I'll kind of leave you one kind of thing, and so, or I'll fight them off, and I'll take one of them down in your name, or something like that, is what Thor kind of says here. So the first thing we see here is the frost giants being seemingly taken out by Boulder and the Warriors 3 and Lady Sith. Uh, we see some attacking going on, but also realize that these guys aren't going to be good enough because they're not Thor, are now, aren't they? They're going to be licking their wounds. Uh, so we see Boulder, he goes on and jabs the eye of one of the frost giants and takes him down. But then eventually one of the giants comes in and kind of just smacks Boulder away. Then we start to bring in Fandral and Hogan, and I think they go on and they try to go with the like roping defense where they go on and they I think they take horses and they try to wrap around the legs to try to trip them and have the guys fall over, and that doesn't work out. Lady Sith comes in and she tries to attack the frost giants with her swords, and she ends up getting kind of crushed for her strife, for her trying. I think she gets like an axe to the ground, forcing her into like a bit of rubble there. Why do I know all this? I just do. Why am I talking about all this? I just do. I'm an hour and 20 minutes in. This is not that bad. I have honestly no idea how deep in we are here. But honestly, well, we're only into the second episode. I really should get the motor going of this. But there's way too much detail specifically in this episode. There's a little bit less detail, I think, in the Hulk episode, but whatever. If anything, also, like, I think I did these out of order. I had to go back into Disney Plus to find out what the order of it was. Because when I would go into any other app, it would be out of order. So I'd go into IMDb, or I'd go into Disney Plus, look at Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes, and try and find the correct order of these episodes, because there's a lot of times where I'd go on into bootleg apps to just try to get clips and stuff like that of these things and get obviously thumbnails and background stuff. And eventually I'd always go on and I would find that the episodes are always out of order for shit. And it would just kind of upset me to where I'm just like, really? Like, man, like this sucks because I have to go on and I'm always paranoid that the episodes aren't going to be in the right order and somebody's going to be upset. But also, there's a lot of times where I just think that people probably won't go on and check this whole thing out, which is kind of sad either way. But I think we're an hour and 20 some odd minutes in, so I think it's safe to say that probably people probably may not go on and watch this whole thing, which is okay. Because you know what? Like, I've been doing this channel for so long, and I've been really like there was a whole strategy to this channel and that never really worked. There was a whole like, hey, yeah, I'll go on and I'll do all these thumbnails and that will save me, that'll get me to get a lot of attention, which technically it did. But also just the way I talk and the way I deliver things, and how I just I go on and I talk too much is to go on and be to my own deficit or my own detriment. But I also go on and I say that I think the point of YouTube, like, you just have to find the right bit of content. It doesn't matter what it is, it just has to be the right content. So if I still have not yet gone on to find that right bit of content, then I probably never will. Like, it'll just take too long of my life to try to find the perfect content, and by that time, my channel will probably be dead, or I probably may go on and just be like, okay, well, like, at some point something's going to happen in my life to where I have to make a decision of continuing to do this, or continuing to try other things at some point. But but I'd like to say that I'd like to be able to justify um, me saying to people, it's like, hey, yeah, I haven't given up yet. I'm going to keep trying to find something that enough people are interested in, but also realize that the channel is probably too far gone, anyways. The channel's too far gone. But hey, like, we had a good run, if nothing else. So, uh, and also, I probably didn't do YouTube in the best way either. Um, I didn't capitalize on really good stuff that I had for the channel. I still like don't capitalize on things. So too many mistakes have been made. Anyway, let's go back to the bit of episodes. So, uh, so we make our way into Thor facing off against the Frost Giants, and we have Odin, who is so excited. It's like, okay, finally, my son is finally here to defend Asgard, and he's still just sitting on his throne, just doing a lick of nothing. So Thor goes on and starts facing off against the Frost Giants, and starts to throw his weight around. Will throw like their own weapons against them around. He calls upon, of course, the thunder to go on and attack all the frost giants, because that's the like his saving grace when he goes up against like way too many odds, as well as also him facing off against these bigger threats. Like he always has the thunder at least. So as the thunder starts to crackle down here, we then start to see the frost giants needing to go on and figure out a way to neutralize Thor, figuring out how to eventually freeze Thor, and thinking that that could be a way to either slow him down or take him out, which that doesn't work. Eventually, Thor, even when frozen, like he starts to crackle through it and break through it, forcing then the frost giants to just try to continue to smash him with weapons and crush him in one of their hands. And one of the frost giants tries to eat Thor, and Thor calls for Mjolnir and has the Mjolnir weapon go on and hit one of the frost giant's tooth, unleashing Thor from his grip, to then have Thor go on and do more lightning blasts with Mjolnir. So here's where finally Thor faces off against Loki. Loki, like, I'm not exactly sure what kind of purple hand weapon like thing that he has in this version of himself. Um, because I don't know if Loki has a very certain specific style of magic. If anything, they've kind of retconned like what exactly Loki can ever always be able to do. Like, so it's never consistent. It's never like he has this certain set of power to him. Um, as well as also there's a lot of times where like I think in this one I think Loki can like fly or something, where like Loki can't exactly fly and all these like yeah, it's just like what do they want to do with Loki in this show to make him different than all the others? Plus also you have all the like the Greek mythology things that you have to kind of try to figure out a way to kind of make um, Loki very much different than normal. Anyways, so as Loki starts to go on and uses its energy blast against Thor here, kind of knocking him back. We have Thor that is trying to plead with Loki to not have them fight. Thor goes on and weirdly is to say how Loki is to have like all of these like things that he is to be. It's like, hey, you're my brother, you're my friend, you're my sister, you're my brother, you're my uncle, you're my nephew. Like Thor goes into this long, jealous amount of things that Loki all is to him, and I am to just be like Thor, like, just say that he's your freaking brother. Like, say it's like, hey Loki, like, you may not be my blood, but you are my brother. Like, if anything, um, like I fought along your side and you have mine, and like, why have you chosen um, to go against me and go against Asgard, the people that have gone on to raise you and um, to have gone on to help you for so long of your life. But yeah, but Loki like gets to go on and just be like, well, because I want the throne. Like he's just so throne hungry that nothing else matters. Um, but also, it's always kind of interesting to see the flip flopping of Loki at some stories of how they convince you as the readers that like Loki could be saved and Loki could be a good guy, and hence where we see him in the Loki series where he's going on and he's trying to save the multiverse or whatever that goofy thing is, that he's going on and doing in the Loki show. Anyways, so as Thor calls upon Mjolnir, and there's Mjolnir against magic, and eventually, uh, as Loki continues to fight against Thor, how we start to see at some point where like Thor goes on and attacks Loki, and I think he like turns into um, like bugs and flies away, and then comes from behind Thor and attacks him with more energy blasts. So here is where Thor brings in the thunder into his Mjolnir, and so Thor goes on and takes down Loki, forces him to have a number of things to answer to, goes on and kind of has Loki in uh, this kind of device that is to imprison both his head as well as his hands in one slab of piece of wood that is to kind of keep him kind of cuffed. So Odin is to have Loki in front of him and decides to banish Loki away uh, to suffer, and is to take him to this location. I think is called the Isles of something, and I think that they say it's somewhere here. But I couldn't have exactly caught it because I didn't exactly go through all the dialogue of it. Um, but and I'm sure probably the point where I was supposed to clip it and it didn't show. But anyways, Loki goes to this place where he can't hear himself talk. He is to be around a number of crows, and he starts talking. All he sees, and so Loki is to realize that he's trapped here. He can't hear his own voice, and Enchantress goes on to free him, and then Enchantress explains to Loki how like things are kind of coming into place, and everything is kind of coming to plan. So after Loki is to be banished to almost like his Superman like Phantom Zone, even though it's like that's DC. Uh, Odin goes on and tells Thor, it's like, well, hey, my Odin's sleep is near. If anything, you should go on and you should be protecting Asgard right now as I sleep. And Thor is kind of he's kind of a child here. Like, he's kind of a child in the very first Thor movie. Thor goes on, it's like, well, you know what? If anything, like, we can go on and have kind of like the Warriors 3 and all those other like Asgardian people, like watch over Asgard, Odin? Like, why do I need to be here? Thor goes on to say how he feels that being at Midgard is a lot more important for him to be there than Asgard, because if anything, Midgard has a lot more threats than Asgard does. And so Thor is to say that he needs to be in Midgard and no one will tell him otherwise. So Thor walks off, takes Mjolnir, and flies off. Here's where Enchantress comes in to save Loki. And then I think shortly thereafter that the episode I think wraps up shortly thereafter. Oh no, wait. Here's where we find out where Loki was to have morphed or shapeshifted into Hulk's the leader, and was working alongside the wrecking crew, telling them to get the technology and send them on their way. And then Thor makes his way to Asgard or Midgard and sees a woman that is screaming out for Thor's help. Please help me, Thor. There's police at the docks. They're under attack. So Thor goes on leaves and gets to that threat as the Enchantress changes back into her Asgardian form and speaks to Loki in this weird, strange green ball of a thing. So Odin goes on and speaks to Balder the Brave, and Balder goes on to mention to Odin about how, yeah, like if anything, like I'm starting to worry about Thor. If anything, I'm feeling that he's starting to be infatuated with Jane Foster, and that'll go on and that'll really hurt Asgard if he has any real feelings for this woman. And so, really after that, let's push on into the Hulk versus the World thing. I know that there's more stuff going on with the Enchantress and Loki by the end of that thing, but I want to kind of push into the next episode. Because honestly, I really like this episode. I really like Hulk episodes anyways. It's an easy win for a lot of people. Definitely let me know if you love Hulk, because I would love to do more Hulk stuff. I know that there was the Hulk Agents of Smash thing, which I watched quite a bit of those episodes. I always wanted there to be a really good She-Hulk bit of content, and I think that, if anything, that might have been one. Either that or when Hulk in the animated series also had She-Hulk in it. I'm like, God dang, like I really like that version of She-Hulk. There was also the Fantastic Four World's Finest, or like whatever the later Fantastic Four series was called. There was like a title that got connected with that completely ends up getting lost by me. I think it was like somewhere in the 2010s maybe, that bit of content, or eventually She-Hulk adds into the Fantastic Four for a brief time in that show. That was actually pretty good also. Anyways, let's go into this. So, as you can tell here, if you're just kind of seeing me kind of needing to take a long bit of breath here, it's one because I ain't just gone through still this like chest injury kind of thing that was to seemingly have just breathing kind of become like a more of a challenging thing. Plus, also like I'm still recovering from that. Um, and so like it kind of just is to just be like, well, maybe this is what my life is like now. That maybe I'm just gonna need to take some time to just kind of take a breath and then just kind of get back into this. But me, there was a lot of times where I did that anyways. Let's push on. let's go on to this. So, and I'm sure no one cared either ways. Hulk. Let's get to this. So, Hulk is going on and making his way through the streets and almost kind of thumbing it like the Incredible Hulk show. Hulk seems to have made his way to Las Vegas, which honestly, for a guy like Hulk, that seems like a very strange place to make his way to because there's so many people there. But also, I guess if you're going into a very heavily populated area, I guess that's good because if anything, you'll get lost in a large number or sum of people. So Banner makes his way through town to eventually find it that a police officer notices him, and the car of the police kind of squeal, and then like they get off a foot, they start chasing after Banner, and at some point Banner is jumping over cabs and finding himself behind this dumpster as the cop runs off to like, oh yeah, I'm after him, subject spotted. Da, da, da. So Banner, after going on and hiding behind this dumpster, is to need to be doing some breathing exercises here. Again, just like Incredible Hulk, the film. And he honestly looks very much like the Banner of the Incredible Hulk, anyways, like very much similar as far as visual cues. So, man, did they steal so many ideas from either that or maybe the MCU stole a lot of ideas, I don't know, from many of these Marvel animated things. So, the next thing we see is a bunch of Hulkbuster armored vehicles making their way through town, tanks and such, and we have General Ross that is going on and speaking with some of his soldiers, going on and stating that somebody had spotted Banner, and so if anything, the pursuit had gotten lost. But Ross is like, well, yeah, I feel it, like he's here. So Ross is going on and telling one of his soldiers to call Fury and tell him to get the cube ready for Banner, and because they know that they're going to nab him here. So they're trying to figure out why Banner is here in Las Vegas, and they can't quite figure it out. They can't put the pieces of the puzzle together. We'd find that Banner is to be on his laptop, and he has kind of analysis or specs about the leader and Abomination, and then the Absorbing Man. So Banner makes his way to a diner called Vital Sign Diner. Kind of interesting because vital sign, that's like a medical, I think that's like a medical term. So Banner makes his way into this diner to look at a big massive behemoth of Absorbing Man, which it's so strange. Like, I think Absorbing Man really could be a guy that has been probably adjusted through a number of Marvel years more than anybody else. Um, like, look at Absorbing Man in the very first Hulk film. Um, you can go on and you can see that Absorbing Man has gone through a number of different iterations, a number of different looks. So it's kind of interesting to see this character as even looking way muscular and massive compared to Banner here sitting down at this diner. So the waitress ends up asking Banner what exactly she can get from, and he says coffee, and she's like, well, uh, like what kind? And he's like, well, definitely decaf. So Banner starts to explain to Absorbing Man here how he's been trying to look for him for weeks, how he knows that he's been imprisoned by the shield, and if anything, Banner is just here to help him, and that he explains who he is, and so Banner is just curious about the prison that Absorbing Man had been into, and was to want to ask him questions about the experiments that were done there. And so here's where we come to find that Absorbing Man takes the spoon that he was given and he transforms his body into the metal of the spoon, and then goes on and takes Banner, bashes him through the diner, and Absorbing Man goes on to explain to Banner, it's like, yeah, I know exactly who you are, and if anything, I've been looking forward to taking you down. So here's where Banner lifts his head up, and we can see with his eyes he's going to turn into the Hulk. As the Banner bits of clothes start to tear away, we start to see the Hulk transform. As Absorbing Man and Hulk start to get into their fight together, we start to also see a number of, I would say fighter jets, but also there's like a weird propeller on them. So I'll just keep calling them fighter jets, or and hope that people probably understand what I mean by that. So they find these fighter jets to have their targets in sight. That if anything, they say the location of where they are going. So the Absorbing Man goes on to face off against the Hulk, and the Hulk has this sign that goes on and smashes the Absorbing Man over the body with. Absorbing Man goes on to change from his spoon metal appearance, then touching the ground, and realizing that that's dirt, it's not strong enough. So Absorbing Man goes on and touches the sign that Hulk was to hit him with, and so that way he can kind of turn into this more metal and much more stronger, durable bit of skin there. Hulk goes on and punches Absorbing Man to the chest, leaving a big, huge fist mark, and then Absorbing Man goes on to turn his fists into what looks like big, huge, massive, like hammers. So I always think that Absorbing Man could just go on and turn his body into materials. I didn't know that he could actually, like, I wasn't sure if Absorbing Man could go on and like morph his body into things, but I guess we see that here, of what exactly he can go on and do. So that's kind of cool here. So, but I guess we could have gone on and seen that Absorbing Man is to also be a person that has kind of like a wrecking ball kind of thing about him at some points. Kind of similar to Thunderball. That's kind of why they were probably configured and redesigned at some points, because they were at some points. If you look at kind of the older pictures of Absorbing Man, it's very similar to Thunderball. So Absorbing Man is to tell Hulk how much he's grown soft, and how bringing them to this location here kind of tells us that Hulk and Banner were trying to get Absorbing Man into this kind of secluded location so no one would get hurt. So Absorbing Man continues to hit Hulk with these hammer-like fists, and at some point we also have Hulk that starts to starts to get more impactful moves. He goes on and slams his foot in the ground, creating this kind of um, this chaotic, like sonic, like attack that kind of ripples through the ground. Uh, Further, as Absorbing Man kind of launches back and changes from his metal form to then he changes to rock-like form. Hulk is to easily bash through this rock, and Hulk kind of makes the joke of like, "Dude, you became rock, like Hulk crush rock." So Hulk starts to go on and really starts to bash through Absorbing Man, breaking him apart to the point where he only has his head left of separated from the rest of his body. Here's where the Hulkbuster uh, tanks start to come in, Raw starts to come in, and so the Hulkbuster units all start to go on, and they start to realize that they can start firing off missiles here. Realize that like it's Absorbing Man, it's Hulk. There's nothing of jeopardy here that they can or collateral damage that they have going on until both Hawkeye and Widow come in. Then there's kind of a dancing around of well, hey, should we go on or should we act and should we, as Ross and his soldiers go on and start attacking Hulk with all their weapons because Hawkeye and Widow are both there. So Hulk rips away from one of these jet planes or one of these fighter jets. He rips off some of the missile launching apparatuses, whatever that is, and so Hulk himself starts to even the odds with some missile fire. So here's where uh, Natasha calls upon Ross, like, well, hey, we're coming down. If anything, we're going to do your job for you. And Hawkeye and Tasha, they get their wrists, uh, and Hawkeye his bow to kind of snap into a way of which they were kind of normal to see how they look. So Hulk starts throwing around the Hulkbuster units and starts to throw around tanks and stuff like that. So as the jet comes down and we immediately see arrows going into Hulk's chest, thinking like, really? Like, this is nothing. And we have Hawkeye that falls to the ground. He's like, tick, tick, boom. And Hulk's like, what? Pa! So we start to see that Hawkeye is to use some explosives with his arrows. And like this is kind of cool because like we actually have Hawkeye that is trying to be very much separate from like a Green Arrow, because Green Arrow would go on to use these like really goofy like boxing gloves and all these other kind of things. So it's nice that we're trying to figure out ways to try to make Hawkeye interesting and unique, and try to not go into much more goofy ways of Green Arrows and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, like it's harder and harder to try to make guys like Hawkeye and Green Arrow to make them distinct enough, separate between one another, because they always have like similar things to them. I think at one point they were trying to have Green Arrow like have like a crossbow to make him different than Hawkeye, but uh, maybe not different enough. So after Hawkeye goes on and Hulk's in the chest with the explosive arrows, Hulk goes on and gets back up. Smoke clears. It's like, you should be running. Kind of like the girl from Hellboy. It's like, you should be running. Anyways, so Hulk goes on and continues to be shot by more arrows by Hawkeye. And Hawkeye and Widow are kind of explaining about how Hulk looks so beaten down that they're not thinking that Hulk is going to be more like ramping up here, that he's going to get stronger, but they don't know Hulk that well. They don't know that this guy has like an endless amount of energy, that he'll go on and he'll fight as long as he has to. That the longer he fights, the stronger he gets. Da 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 da. Like that. That Hulk is basically like Juggernaut, where it's like if you give him momentum, he becomes unstoppable. So Hulk continues to get these explosive arrows. Black Widow starts to fly into the way of Hulk um, to figure out a way to fight him, and it kind of gets to where Widow has to go on and kind of use her 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 wrist weapons to go on and face off against Hulk, to kind of figure out a way to kind of distract him long enough for Hawkeye to get more arrows in, and they're kind of both kind of working in tandem together to try to take Hulk down in that capacity. So Hawkeye goes on and uses netting arrows, uses electricity arrows, even goes on to freeze Hulk, and none of it works. Uh, Here's where Ross and his men come in, and they're like, "Well, hey, shouldn't we go on and should we attack Hulk also? We're here, right?" And Ross is like, "Yeah, go after him. Like, shoot missiles into him. Like, I want him dead." And the guy's like, "Wait a minute. Like, Hawkeye and Widow are out there. Like, we should not be going on, and we shouldn't be, um, like, obviously putting them in danger." And Ross is like, "I don't care. Like, hit the missiles anyways." So as Hulk is going on, like grabbing Hawkeye by the head, and it's kind of cool to just see Hulk like just grabbing these characters and just like playing them around like toys. Um, and obviously, we want to go always go want to go on and see Hulk turning against his team and fighting against them, um, and kind of like treating them like playthings. But here's where the big massive missile comes in, and Hulk decides like, wait, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bash against this thing, and kind of fly back. And Hulk goes on and smashes against this uh, this piece of massive rock that eventually starts to tip over because of how just weirdly constructed it is. It looks like a flashlight, um, for how this weird bit of rock is. So this flashlight like rock of thing starts to fall over, and we start to see that the shield jet of the thing is to be in jeopardy. And I think Hawkeye calls for Ross to get out of there, and it's not Ross, it's like Mockingbird. Like I think they couldn't, like I think maybe this was like a an error in the script, or also they couldn't go on and they couldn't say who Mockingbird's name was. I think this was Mockingbird at that time. So Hulk goes on and saves the jet before it crashes. He grabs it and then sets it down, like really showcasing very well how strong this Hulk really is. And then shortly thereafter that we again have one of the electrical Hawkeye arrows going into Hulk, kind of dropping him here. Finally, having the dust settle and having Banner turn back into himself instead of being the Hulk. So we now cut to the cube. Both Absorbing Man and Hulk are to be uh, both, I'm sure, drugged and put into containment so that way uh, they can be then put into prison. So we now have the cube, and so Hawkeye is passing by a number of villains here who I won't all say, but believe me, I would love to. Like one of them is to be By Beast. I think the other one next to him is like Viper. Kind of after that, like there's kind of bits and characters here that I don't even know who they are, but they do look cool. Because of course we have the leader, we have Radioactive Man. There's a guy with a skull that I'm not quite sure who he is. Um, and then there's also like a kind of an element character that like is that Wonder Man? Like I'm a little bit I'm not quite sure who that character is. I don't know who that is. So let me know in the comments below. So we then have Banner that's talking to a character called Nelson, who I'm assuming is Doc Samson. But somebody can probably correct me in the comments below if this is Doc Samson or not. Because regularly we would go on to have Banner who talks to Doc Samson. Like watching the other Hulk show. Yeah, we have Doc Samson, who's like helping out um, Banner in that show. But I guess like there's a lot of times where they're trying to go on and they're trying to disguise who these characters are, so that way like they can kind of get away with rights and stuff like that to try to not have to pay people so much money. Uh, so so Nelson goes on and gets a sample of Banner's blood. Um, oh, is it Nelson? I guess his name is Leonard. Leonard. Um, yeah, I thought his name was Leonard for some reason. So my bad. So Leonard goes on and takes the blood from Banner here, and then leaves, and then Hawkeye comes in. Hawkeye looks at Banner, and Banner is like, "Oh yeah, like I'm sure you thought I'd be bigger, right? Because the Hulk, for how big the Hulk is." And Hawkeye's like, "Well, yeah, I guess I thought that." So Hawkeye wants to know why the Hulk didn't escape. Why Hulk was to have gone on and smashed in that missile and saved Hawkeye and Widow from this attack. Like, Banner could have taken that missile, chucked it at Widow and Hawkeye, and could have then bounced. So Hawkeye is just having that question of like, why did Hulk do the right thing? He's a monster. He's a barbarian. Like, why? Um, why did he step in there? And Banner then in turn tells Hawkeye, it's like, well, hey, yeah, like, if anything, like, it's because Hawkeye really doesn't understand the Hulk very well. He doesn't even understand the prison that he's currently standing in. And there are people being experimented on. There's a lot of things that are to be happening under Hawkeye's nose. And if anything, Hawkeye needs to go on and needs to kind of do his due diligence here and really go on and realize that things are being very much being misunderstood by Hawkeye, and that he needs to start really looking more into things. So Hawkeye then in turn is to just like, well, I guess you got a point there. So Hawkeye is to be told by Banner, it's like, well, yeah, they just took a sample of my blood. Like, I don't think I could really trust people taking a sample of my blood. And like, if they took a sample of my blood, like what are they going to do with it? Like what are they using it for? So we'd find that Natasha herself is to make her way into the same containment that has Hulk's blood in it, and Natasha is to take that sample. While that's going on, we have Hawkeye that wants to look into Natasha's bit of computer. So Hawkeye is looking into the Shield computer and trying to figure out Natasha's password. She hopes that it's Clint's name. Doesn't work. Like there's so many different computer passwords that he eventually goes into, and so he ends up saying the word Red Room, which ties into Black Widow's origin. So we find out that the last message that Black Widow is to go on and have is with a Hydra agent, and that she's going to mention about how she has the blood sample, that they're going to meet together, and that the two of them are going to exchange the blood sample. And Hawkeye's like, okay, who is it that she's talking to? And it's an Hydra agent. He's like, oh, like, she's turncoat. She's a double agent. So Hawkeye, in his sky cycle, goes chasing after Natasha, who in this container has this blood sample of the Hulk. Natasha goes on and hands over this blood sample to Hydra, and Hawkeye gets his bow and arrow out. Is like Natasha, like you've been my partner for years. Like, you owe it to me, Natasha. Why is it that you turncoated? And then all of a sudden, Natasha is calling on to Shield and explaining how Hawkeye is a double agent, and that he's going on and he's going and doing this deal with Hydra, and all of a sudden, Shield and their operatives are come flying in. They're netting Hawkeye and they're taking him out, and they're attacking him. Which, strangely enough, this time around we don't have the Mandroids in this episode. Strangely, they took the Shield people, and now they just have them in like these weird kooky jetpacks, which I'm like, okay, you're not exactly being consistent, show. Like, maybe the whole Mandroid thing, maybe there was some part where it's kind of left out where it's like, yeah, we couldn't have gone on and had the Mandroid thing always being in every one of these episodes. So maybe they were figuring out a way to like write that out, how they're going to try to change how the Shield looks in every episode. Anyway, so so after Natasha is to go on and arrest Hawkeye herself, she then goes on and is to speak with Hydra and mention how she had just gone on to convince Shield that Hawkeye is a double agent, and that if anything, she's gone on to now be able to like, hey, yeah, like I'll still have this blood sample, and I'll give it to Hydra, and it'll all work out. And then we get to seeing the moon with the Hydra symbol. All right. Man, we're on the 4th episode now. 2 hours in, holy like, I kind of figured it'd take this long. It, like, these last 2 episodes are probably going to take another hour, probably hour and a half. Man, if anything, I think after this, I'm going to try to maybe just do movies for a little bit. Because I've kind of done a lot of, like, I just did an anime, and now I'm doing this. Like, I think that was the big thing of me going on and kind of being leery about doing too much TV or even TV. Like, there's sometimes where it's like a lot of effort for not a good enough number of results, because really, like, these videos take way longer because there's so much detail. But also, it's content where I'm very unsure of, like, oh yeah, I can do this one video and see where it goes, but like after this, it's not going to do as well as prior. So it's just like, there's always going to be these one-off things. That's why a lot of people probably be upset when I only do these one-off things. It's because, like, there's no way of knowing how well a second iteration of this is going to do. Even if the first thing does well. The second one never does as good as numbers as the first time around. So that's what sucks about like movie sequels, where it's like I love to know which movie sequels does well off the first jump of me covering something, because then I would justify that at least I can go on and do a number of sequels. I probably should have gone on and at least finished up the Rambo franchise, but I keep doing other projects. Things just keep coming up. Anyways, let's come up to finish this episode. So we have Kang the Conqueror, who is to start off this next episode, and he's looking through the Chrono archives to find Rogers. So we now cut to the black and white, which I actually love the fact that they're going to like an old fashioned, like, hey, we're going through a time period where, of course, doing Captain America's origin, so it's going to be in this kind of style, which I liked. I also like the fact that we actually finally had Wolverine in this story, but they tried to not give him bone claws or any kind of claws. They at least do the voice of Wolverine. But yeah, like, and they do say the word bub, but yeah, they couldn't have actually have added him in, which is kind of interesting because at some points, or even in X-Men 97, Captain America, I think, is in there at some point in that story, to kind of retie into things. Anyways, let's push on here. So they go through the old origin of Captain America, how he tried to enlist in the military, and he was to go on to be so sickly, and like nobody was to justify his enlistment. He goes on and gets a super soldier serum because he was the best candidate for it, and he turns from a small man to then a muscular, massive hunk of a man. So Captain America facing alongside Bucky, facing the threats of Hydra and Nazi regime of during that time period. So we then cut to what almost looks like D-Day, for how we have this like kind of transporting of a ship that drops Frenchie, Dung Dun Dugan, and Logan here, which he goes by Howlett, which is to actually be his actual legitimate name. But anyways, so, or James Howlett, I think, is actually his name, and then they switch it to like Logan and stuff later on. Anyways, we also have, I think, Jack Fury instead of Nick Fury, because I guess that's Nick Fury's father. There's also several different iterations of Nick Fury that happens at some point in the story of Marvel. Anyways, let's push on here. So Hydra is to go on and just start blasting away the commandos here as they make their way to what looks like a graveyard. And we have at one point one of the commandos that like pops this thing of bubble gum. Real sign of the times, even in a battle, he's popping up bubble gum. So I think Dum Dum Dugan is turning to Logan as something like, "Hey man, we need intel. Like, tell us where all the threats are coming." You'd think out of everybody, Logan would be the one guy that you could send into battle and just have him just blast into the guy that's shooting him, and he'll go on and he'll be able to see how many people are still alive. But here's where we get Captain America coming in with his shield coming slicing through the gun. I think that is kind of weird because I would not think that a Captain America shield could slice through a gun like that. But I guess we have to say that the shield is sharp enough to do something like that. It's weird. So Strucker goes on to tell Red Skull here, because this is to be in the past. So Strucker is going on and talking to Skull here in the past. So Strucker is informing Red Skull about how Captain America's in the field, that the Commandos are coming after them. So Red Skull's like, great, it's time to unleash our specimens to go on and be the perfect test against our rivals. So as we start to see the Commandos are kind of like military pressing their way through a lot of these Hydra characters, uh, we see Logan jump from this water and jump on top of one of these Hydra men. We see Frenchie, who I think Frenchie ends up at some point becoming like Captain Britain at some point, or like there was never, I think, a thing where they did that anywhere in an animated thing, because like no one ever really cared enough about Captain Britain to actually have him be put in an animated thing anywhere. But uh, yeah, we have to realize that Frenchie is to go on and be an important thing at some point to the story. And so Frenchie goes on and he uses his umbrella and he like grabs the guy by the neck and punches him. So as Fury is with Cap here, Captain America goes on and takes his shield and bashes his way through a number of Hydra agents. And Fury is like, "Hey man, that shield should be standard issue." And Cap is telling Fury, "It's like, I'm sorry, it's one of a kind." So an explosion happens, and all of a sudden, Cap's to realize that Fury is to be down on the ground. He's possibly thinking that Fury is dead. So Fury makes his way to see a Hydra agent, and Bucky takes him out with this bridge. And so Bucky is kind of giving Cap an update about like, well, hey, yeah, there's Hydra soldiers everywhere. Uh, and all of a sudden they look back at Fury and he gets back up. It's like, oh, okay, kind of like give me a start there to think that that Jack Fury or this Fury would go on and be killed here. So they make their way through this door using this explosive, and here's where this ogre appears, and they're like, "What the is this?" So they're going on and they're saying like how weird that this thing is, and like yeah, we fought a number of crazy things in our time, but this is to be kind of really crazy. So we would have Bucky that jumps on the back of the ogre, and the further along we go with this ogre fight, they would go on to use like the bridge to their way of trying to take this thing out by having eventually the ogre tip its way over and have the bridge break. So Cap and Bucky start to make their way through this castle to eventually find a number of like jarred creatures, and eventually they would find these large containers that house all these fairies and other assortment of probably realm like things that were to be of mythological monsters that they could use here as little Easter eggs. So the Hydra soldiers start to surround Cap and Bucky, and here's where Red Skull comes in and start to explain about his creatures being brought in and how he has the ability to control them because he has them under remote where he presses this button and he can control um, their he can control them. So Red Skull goes on to have another kind of portal or realm open, and as this realm opens further and further wide, we'd have this giant frost giant that comes from this realm. So as that is going on and the destruction of that is to have occurred, both Cap and Bucky realize that they should take advantage of this, and so they fight their way out. Bucky and Cap, they're like, "Hey, we got to get to that machine, turn it off, so that way this portal closes." So here's where all of a sudden all the creatures start to get opened, and now Bucky and Cap are having to face off against them, with shield throwing and Bucky trying to go on and trying to fight his way through the the creatures and get like Cap to kind of throw the shield to kind of assist Bucky at some points. Bucky goes on, faces off against Strucker, and Strucker has his sword being put into the machine. I think he ends up getting electrified here. And as the monsters start to strive and start to surround Cap here, Cap, it seems, is to take this gas hose and set it ablaze to where there is to be kind of like a flamethrower like approach against these monsters to try to fend off here. So finally, as more and more destruction starts to happen here, and finally they figure out a way to have the portal to condense back into itself. Uh, the big thing is for both Cap and Bucky to run off after Red Skull, because Red Skull has made his way into this rocket-like ship, and so they are going on and chasing after him. So Bucky is be told by Cap, "Hey, yeah, stick around, stay at this castle, and kind of collect up all these Hydra agents, and don't follow me." And Bucky doesn't listen to Cap and follows up after him anyways. So the two of them make their way up this ladder of this rocket, and Bucky is calling out for Cap because he's there behind him. He's like, "Oh, okay, all right." So the two of them make their way on the rocket. Cap grabs onto Red Skull, and Red Skull hits this button to all of a sudden have this explosive start to time its way off. So Cap, needing to figure out how exactly he'll be able to disarm this explosive, or they're going to have to just jump off of this rocket. Cap all of a sudden notices that Bucky is stuck on one of these pieces of ladder that had gotten jostled, I guess, in the ejection of Red Skull from off of this ship. So Cap runs back to try to figure out a way to muscle to save Bucky, and Bucky will not allow Cap to die here. So Bucky goes on and kicks Cap off of the rocket to where now Cap is now falling, and I would have almost assumed almost to his death, but there is water nearby. So, and of course, if we've ever heard of a Captain America story, he always goes on and he falls into the Arctic and he freezes and then he comes back into modern time and da 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 da. So he becomes like an Iceman of old, so of caveman of old. So we now would go on to have King, who is to see the memorial of Captain America and Bucky, the statue of it, and he'd be like, "Wait a minute, isn't Captain America to still go on and still be like a threat to my timeline? Like how is it that he used to have gone on and had that happen? So Kang starts to follow back Bucky and Cap through this story again, and we see Bucky that kind of looks back and like, hey, is somebody behind me? So Kang keeps going on and keeps going forward in time to figure out the exact moment of where Captain America had been revived. So kind of replaying the whole last bit of everything all over again. So Kang finds where Captain America is to drop into the Arctic, and so he has a large amount of time that ends up being fast forwarded, and he still sees that no one has come. No one has come to rescue Captain America. So it's like, so King is trying to figure out exactly, narrow it down exactly for when Captain America gets resurrected, and then all of a sudden he gets pulled away by his timeline starting to crackle and starting to all disappear from this white light. So Kang gets to a ship to try and plead for them to go back to a safer time. And all of a sudden, as Kang is to meet up with his wife and is to have all of a sudden his timeline starting to disappear away from him, Kang has his wife fall into his arms, and King is to go on and just be like, well, all right, well, um, like I'll save you, my love. I'll save our entire timeline, even if I have to conquer time to do so. And then we get to the finishing up of that episode. So, kind of word for word, kind of finishing that off, of course. So, whew, 2.5 hours in. Whew, all right. So, Peanut, we made it. We're now to the last episode. The Man in the Anthill. All right. So, within this episode, we come to find that Shield is watching over Ant Man's facility. We're in Wakanda, and there's a bunch of guys on jeeps that are trying to get to Ant Man's facility, kind of going on and spotting where they're going to have to kind of carefully make their way through to get to. I'm just saying words here. So, as a number of the mercenaries go on and they start clipping the Shield members, and we have Hank who's having a tape recording because he's going on and doing this experiment on the vibranium, trying to um, figure out about it, as well as also uh, to eventually say that while using this vibranium, he's not going to probably put any of his ants or anything of anyone in danger by experimenting too much on this vibranium. So here's where Claw comes in, and he explains who he is. He of course goes on to uh, say that he wants Pym's research and he wants the vibranium, and as people are going on and holding guns to Pym's face, all of a sudden we see that Pym uses his Pym particles and transforms into a smaller bit of size, and the mercenaries go on and they shoot these tranquilizer darts, but it hits just Pym's lab coat. All of a sudden, we start to see the mercenaries start to look around. One of the mercenaries that goes on and looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger ends up getting popped in the face and getting knocked out here. And we're like, okay, what the heck? Like we didn't see where that threat is. So Ant-Man in a much more smaller size comes flying in and starts to punch and starts to kick the mercenaries, taking them down one by one. Claw puts the vibranium into his weapon and has this sonic like weapon that is blasting and hitting Ant-Man to the point where he's going on and he's slamming this button down to then have the environment that is to all be around him, this weird igloo-like area that they're inside of. All of a sudden it's to shrink down to even smaller amount of size, which these guys are not aware of until they go outside. Because they're like, hey man, yeah, we got the vibranium, we're gonna get the heck out of here, like we've got what we came for. As they leave, they start to notice that the shield soldiers are way more bigger in size, and also they realize that the ants are also way bigger in size. So Ant-Man jumps on one of the ants and is to start battling against these mercenaries. As Claw is to try to blast with this sonic weapon Ant-Man, he evades, of course, with the ant, and then eventually comes flying in onto Claw, punching him out, and having him drop onto the ground. So, as Claw retains his sonic weapon, scrambling it to try and attack Ant-Man with it, Ant-Man grows bigger in size and is to then have the sonic weapon with him as Claw is to run off here. So at some point, uh, Pym goes on and gets the base back to a certain realm of size, and we'd have Pym that goes on and tells Shield, it's like, hey, yeah, like we have some mercenaries that are very much small in size, so I want to go on and let Shield know that because, of course, I don't want them to get eaten or attacked because of ants that don't know any better. So here's where Wasp comes in, starts to see that Pym is working on the vibranium, and then we cut to the two of them uh, at this facility somewhere, and some time has passed. Here's where Wasp goes on and sees that a laboratory nearby, a science lab nearby, is being wreaking havoc on by a villain named Whirlwind. Hank goes on and kind of turns to see Wasp and realizes that her clothing is all gone, and we see that Wasp is running off to chase after Whirlwind. So Wasp goes on and starts blasting Whirlwind, and we have Whirlwind that it seems is to be very cocky and very confident of a character that just be Whirlwind, really. So, uh, as Wasp continues to try to evade Whirlwind as he continues to use this winding attack. I wish there's more that I could really just say in detail here. At some point, Whirlwind does get attacked by a bunch of bugs or a swarm of things, and Ant-Man comes flying in and is to go on and say to Wasp, like, "Oh yeah, like an ant told me that like you were going on and you were fighting against this whirlwind character." And uh, so Whirlwind goes on and he starts to thrust out within this whirlwind um, these ninja stars, and eventually we have Wasp avoiding them, and Wasp goes on to blast Whirlwind in the face as she's gone on to get to a much more regular size, and Ant-Man does too. So we then cut to the big house, another Max prison, and Whirlwind with a bunch of Shield agents is kind of passing by a number of supervillains. We see Armanzola, we see the Great Gargoyle, and oh, it's not Shield agents, it's Ultrons. Yeah, Ultrons. They're kind of they're not the villainous Ultrons yet. Eventually, that'll happen in the show. But if anything, we have these kind of like how eventually in Avengers: Age of Ultron there was stuff like Legion, and then eventually Legion became Ultron. Like this is kind of like the beginning of that, where we just have a bunch of Ultrons that are to just be these kind of like dummy characters that are to just kind of go into this big house and is to be kind of like the guards of this prison. So Whirlwind is going on and saying to these supervillains, like, hey, all you guys have powers and you're not going to use it against this prison to escape out of here. And the Great Gargoyle is going on and telling Whirlwind here, it's like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. So as Whirlwind starts to use his power, all of a sudden, we have the Ultrons that start attacking him, but also we get a finger that pushes Whirlwind down, and we find that Hank Pym is be hovering over him, and so as Hank Pym holds Whirlwind down, here's where Nick Fury goes on and says like, "Hey, another good job by Ant-Man," and Ant-Man's like, "Well, no, actually, the Wasp was the one that was to capture Whirlwind. I just came in there afterwards." And so Fury's like, "Okay, well, maybe I should go on and maybe I should hire Wasp." Oh, also in the background of that prison, at some point there was the mandrill, the gorilla or the gorilla, the baboon looking person in the prison. I think I lost that a little bit of. I was kind of zooming through a lot of these characters. So now we're at a point where uh, Pank and Wasp are talking to Fury here, and Fury is talking to Pym about how secure the prison is, and Pym is going on and saying how he doesn't really like this prison, about how no one has gotten released from the prison yet, like nobody's being rehabilitated, and everything about this prison just kind of feels wrong, that these people are just kind of kept there under their will. So Hank is going on and doing this whole speech about how he's upset with Fury, and so Fury goes on and mentions about how Pym was so distracted with the whole whirlwind thing that he didn't really ask of what exactly they were trying to obtain. And and what they obtained was a sonic disruptor, and is to house vibranium, and for some reason this weapon is still out there. And so the next thing we cut to is Whirlwind in this prison cell, going on and speaking to the Mad Thinker or Mad Tinkerer. This villain was eventually to go on and I think be a big villain for the Miles Morales Super or Spider-Man game, and like it is kind of interesting to see him here because of how rare he actually gets used. But I think if you just need like a really just if you really need like a Doctor Octopus level of character, you just kind of bring this guy in because he's just another mad scientist kind of character that you can kind of um, believe anything with this character of him being a credible threat. So Whirlwind and Mad Thinker are going on, and they're talking about the possibility of escaping. And Mad Thinker has thought of a number of different ways for them to escape, and it is possible, and he's run the math. And so we then get a number of shots of other prisoners like Baron Zemo, Strucker, even Graviton. So all that it will take is just one really strong supervillain to really turn the tide of what's going on here. So now we cut to Wakanda. Here's where we have M'Baku that is challenging T'Chaka uh, for the Wakandan throne, I guess. So we have T'Challa that is telling T'Chaka that maybe she should go on and not take on this challenge, and T'Chaka tells T'Challa, it's like, well, yeah, like if anything, if you were to ever become a king like me, you'll go on, you'll realize that you always have to go on and take all these challenges on. Like you can't just go on and not do them. Um, so, and if anything, if somebody challenges you, you have to meet that challenge. So, but if anything, also, the Black Panther does not believe that he will lose. So, the Black Panther takes on M'Baku, and there's a bit of a fist action going on here, and eventually M'Baku gets down on the ground. All of a sudden, a sonic disruptor makes its way onto the field, blasts T'Chaka, gets him very disoriented. M'Baku starts to smash and starts to attack Black Panther. All of a sudden, T'Chaka is to have lost his Black Panther mask. T'Chaka gets back up, is again very disoriented by again another sonic attack, and then M'Baku takes advantage and continues to uh, pummel T'Challa to death, or T'Chaka to death. So T'Challa runs off after the defeat of his father, goes on to find the shrine of the Black Panther, goes on to find his own Black Panther costume, and by the end here, um, we'd have both M'Baku and Claw that are saying about like how M'Baku and how his people have been treated, but now no more. Now, if anything, they're going to go on and they're going to take these vibraniums, and they're going to take the material of vibranium, and they're going to use it, and 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 we just see this big huge mining like facility of vibranium. And the next thing we see that after that is T'Challa, who is looking on at Conda off the distance. And then we cut to credits. Woo! Thank goodness. um it'll be interesting to get to the breakout points of this stuff. Like, if anything, I honestly just didn't like these episodes because it's a lot of origin, it's a rehashing of stuff. um I honestly don't feel like a good number of superhero animated stuff, like, when you are in a group show, I never think that you should go on and do origins of characters. You should go right into the whole group meeting up and the big thing going on. Like, that's where I would go on. And I would like stuff like the Avengers things that came later, like Avengers Assemble and all these things that are just like, hey, just lump this group together. People should know who they are by now. There's enough MCU material. Like, if anything, like, people should know who these all are. In these episodes, they, I guess, realize that there is not enough animated content out there that is to explain to all these people. Um, so yeah, therein lies like the reasoning for all these origins. Because if anything, also, I thought it was really cool that we actually had Black Panther on this team, because I didn't think it was going to happen. Um, or I didn't think it was going to be off the cuff of a thing happening. I thought they're going to bring somebody else in. Uh, I think that this is the best possible way that you kind of bring an Avengers team together. Um, I would go on and I would say that Avengers teams through years have kind of adjusted and changed, and had gotten a lot more bloated out, and like they started with a big massive number of Avengers characters, and eventually they just kind of lump everybody in to just say that they're Avengers at some certain points. Like, the later that we kind of go about this, like, they do bring in like Wolverines and Spider-Mans, and they start to keep adding on to all of this show. And that's good and great and all, that they kind of expand upon the Marvel world of things. Um, but I think in the MCU, where there's like 50 different Avengers, like, that is to go on and just be like, okay, how well are they all going to get used? And then they didn't. At least with this show, they expanded, but also they just kept to the same core group, which I liked. Because if you were going to go on and go onto these offshoot Avenger teams, like, man, are you going to go on and kind of eventually have people kind of feel shortchanged. Um, but also, I think that's probably what happened with maybe Justice League Unlimited for a number of people, where they would go on like, hey man, I want to see Batman and Superman and Green Lantern. I want to see all those core people face off against whatever this threat is, and you're bringing in like Supergirl and Captain Atom. Who the are these guys? Um, but I also liked that show. I also enjoyed uh, the diversity of Marvel and stuff like that, and DC, and going on and giving us these kind of more lesser known characters. Like, I would like where you would go on and you'd have like a core group of characters, but then you would also go on and kind of bring in this like special guest that is be for like a short run, be involved in the group, and then they go on their own. Um, I like those kind of elements of the shows. Like, those were kind of cool. Um, like, they kind of eventually brought in Spider-Man working alongside Captain America, and that was like a cool, interesting story. But anyways, time to get out of here. Time for me to go on and try to get this under 3 hours. Plus, also, uh, uh, like I want to maybe try to maybe squeak in another project after this, like because I feel that I need to just be scrambling and getting more stuff done. I don't know how my day is going to turn out, but I hope that I can get something else on top of this done. Because I feel that I desperately need to at this point. Because I've been very lackadaisical about when I put this content out, as well as also I've been very lackadaisical on this channel altogether. And I realize that. I realize that I'm not doing this right. Uh, but if anyways, I don't think there is any more right way to do a channel. Like, if anything, like I've lost so much momentum for this channel, um, and there were projects that I looked at that I really thought were going to be like, okay, this is going to be the way that I'm going to keep the momentum going. I think that this project is going to um, keep my numbers kind of where it's at, and yeah, no, like it would always just go on to be like flip flopping or whatever. Um, like this channel is the most like inconsistent. If anything, it's very consistently inconsistent for everything across the board. Um, like sometimes, like I'm really up and really doing well, and things are looking um, like it's coming up Millhouse, and then there's some times where it's just like completely derailed. And but I hope to eventually I'll maybe figure out some kind of upswing and uh, and we'll maybe find our way. Because I guess for if Jurassic Park quote is to come up to be the last thing we say here, it's like uh, nature finds its way, or it always finds its way, or whatever. So be able to go on and I'll figure out my way. So that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Also, I'm growing out my beard because I've been waiting for a Kratos costume to come in. So eventually, I'll go on and I'll waste too much of my time shaving my head, and which will be a stupid thing to do because it'll be really just for that. Um, because I know that there's a God of War show coming at some point, and so I'm growing out my beard for specifically that. Then I'll shave my beard because I'm like that. I'm not a man that enjoys facial hair, except for like a beard. Like I really started to enjoy a good beard. Um, but if anything, I never really like a mustache at all. Ugh. If anything, I just kind of I just got more lazy with my shaving, just because my razor just isn't like it's kind of on its last legs. So whenever I'm to go on and shave, it's just kind of like reluctant. I'm like, ah, crap, I got to do this again. So that's kind of a lot of times why I look like a very scruffy man and whatever. Um, I do easily have the availability to just kind of cut my hair whenever I want to. I have my own clippers, so I always cut my own hair. That's a very cost effective, cheap way of. But actually, I've gotten to a point now where I have like this displayer of mirrors, so I know how I can actually like cut my hair in like the perfect pattern every time. So I'm actually getting better at cutting my own hair. Like there's a lot of times where I'd go through a lot of different patterns and just try some things because I'm um, like I'll go on and I'll give myself a mohawk, or I'll just kind of cut like everything from the sides back. And I know a lot of times my hair just like really just looks awful or stupid or whatever. Um, like I can tell in some photos where it's just like I probably should have just grown that all out. But anyways, uh, no one's gonna care about any of this stuff. If anyways, people probably gave up like an hour or 2 hours ago, probably 3 hours ago. Uh, they gave up before this thing even came out. But anyways, It's my time to give up. So, well, give up for this video and call an upload. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. I hope to in the future be able to justify to do more superhero content. I hope to justify. Uh, Hopefully, that something will get a view somewhere down the road. Um, so, thank you all for going on and hanging on to this channel. To hope that I'm going to give you something that you want, or also I've probably ticked off too much of people. I think I've really ticked off too many people. Like I can obviously tell um, by a lot of times when like people like vote. Like there's sometimes where I can see like a huge jump and a lot of people all voting, but then there's sometimes where it's just like one, two, like I'm like man, like I must suck at doing this. Um, like across the board, there is just a suck that I've delivered. Um, I don't know, like I don't know how I can be better. Um, I don't know how I can turn this tide. I don't know what I can do. Besides just making shorts out of my content, figuring out a way to just kind of like recycle things to just be like, okay, maybe you didn't like this cut of it, but hey, here's a shorter one. Um, like, but that also is just extra work. That's just extra things that um, will just eat up into my time. That I'm like, well, like if I just make shorter videos of everything, um, then like I'd be better off trying to chase uh, more IPs, more things, and do videos on that than wasting my time just shortening down content. But anyways, I could be wrong. Obviously, I'm to say that again, I'm a person who's made a lot of mistakes. But anyways, this long video will be another one. So let's get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.